I'd like to call the Planning Commission meeting to order for November 16th, 2021. I am presiding as chair because today is our elections. I'd like to establish a quorum.
Mr. Walters? Mr. Canali?
Here.
Ms. Kirkner?
Here.
Mr. Lester?
Here.
Mr. Hoff?
Here.
Commissioner Wentz?
Here.
Secretary Eisenberg?
Here.
Ms. Chair, please let the record reflect that 5 members are present and we do have a quorum.
All right, so the next order of business before we do the Pledge of Allegiance is to elect a chair for this meeting. This is our annual elections, so we will go ahead and do the election script. So hold the record open for the board position of, okay, hold on, sorry, Laura. Where does that say secretary? We do the, I'm so sorry, we're doing the secretary first?
Well, I think do we need a chair pro tem first?
We just need I think we're just gonna elect a chair first.
Oh.
Yeah, just elect a chair. Okay, sorry. In accordance with the rules and procedures of the Planning and Zoning Commission, I now declare nominations open for the office of chair. Who would like to nominate a board member for chair?
I nominate Jeff Weathers for chair.
Do we have a second?
A second.
I'll second that.
Okay. Jeff Walters has been nominated and seconded for chair. Are there any other nominations for office of the chair? All right, I would like now to close the nomination for office of chair and elect Jeff Walters for the office of the chair. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and do a motion for the vice chair.
I nominate Janice as vice chair.
May I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor for Janice Kirkner as vice chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Aye.
Aye. Since Mr. Walters is not here this morning, Ms. Kirkner will now proceed with the meeting as chair, and then we'll do the election of the secretary.
Thank you, Linda. Okay, we will now hold the election of secretary. Hold the record open for the board position of secretary. Are there any nominees for the board position of secretary?
I nominate Linda Eisenberg. I'll second that.
A motion has been made and seconded. Are there any other nominations for the board position of secretary? Hearing none, all those in favor of electing Linda Eisenberg for the board position of secretary say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you all too for our new members and for serving in these positions.
Okay. I would like to call the meeting to order. And we already established a quorum. So we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
With liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Review and approval of agenda.
So there are some revisions to today's agenda. So we added the next meeting will be virtual for Wednesday, December 1st at 6 p.m. And then secondly, we did the order of the elections. We did not need to elect a chair pro tem, so we did item 9, which is election of commission chair, vice chair, and secretary in replacement of item 3. So that did change for today's agenda. The rest is the same.
Okay, thank you. Commission member reports, I have none. Commissioner Witten, do you have a report?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, thank you for stepping up, Janice, and we'll thank Jeff when he gets here. I know he was unable to be here today, so do appreciate those folks that move up in leadership roles, and especially on this is very important, and you've heard me say this a million times, and I'll continue to say it. The Planning and Zoning and Board of Zoning Appeals are both groups that sort of set the stage for the county, look at the future, and make some really important decisions. So again, appreciate those that have stepped up and those that continue to serve. With that, here's my commercial. You see, we were a little bit on the edge of having a quorum today. We have some openings, and for me, I think it's very important to ensure that we have a good balance on here of folks from various areas of the county. So I would ask that, first of all, let me back up just a second and thank Ms. Cheatwood for her years of service. We did that at the work session the other evening, but she served very well. She actually was in my district, District 1, and she did, again, a wonderful job here. So back to my commercial. We're looking for some good folks that want to serve on planning and zoning. So it's very easy to do that. Go onto our website. There's an application process. Fill that out. I will tell everyone that these positions on Planning and Zoning and Board of Zoning Appeals are both boards and commissions now that we interview for. Many we just choose and we go on, but these are very important. So we interview for these, as most of you know, and we try to pick some really, really good people that we think fit these boards and commissions. So please take a look at that. If you're interested, make sure you get a hold of us. We're very easy to get a hold of. Phone numbers everywhere. You can email us. You can go onto our website, and we would appreciate a lot of interest here as we move forward. So with that said, I think I'll stop, and again, thank you all for serving, and we look forward to what's coming in the future here. Thank you, Janice.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Or Madam, what do you call it?
Vice Chairman.
Vice Chair. Madam Vice Chair. Let's do it appropriately.
Thank you. Any other commission members want to say anything? Matt?
No, not today.
Jean? Okay. We'll go on to the administrative report. Linda Eisenberg.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. Just a few matters for the administrative report. As Commissioner Want said, we are short 2 members. Most recently, our chairwoman, Cynthia Cheatwood, stepped down from her position, as well as our alternate, Michael Gosnell. So we would love to have some new members come on board so that we can have these meetings and keep doing the business of Carroll County. And thank you all for being here today and for your dedication and for the dedication of the members who have served, such as Ms. Cheatwood as chair. She's going to be greatly missed in all of this. Also, just a reminder, the public hearing for the residential text amendments and the map changes will be this Thursday. We are having 2 public hearings for that. The first is in the afternoon at 1 p.m. in this room, 003. It'll be hosted by the Board of County Commissioners, so that will be an in-person meeting. Keep in mind, there's a 25-person limit due to COVID restrictions in this room. So there's also another option to attend in the evening at 7 p.m., which will be virtual. There is sign up for the virtual meeting on our website, and you can also submit comment for either public hearing. It doesn't matter at any time on our website as of now, and you can also email us any comments you have on the residential text amendments and the map amendments as well. So again, that's this Thursday. And with that, I'm going to see if there's any extensions for this month. Okay, so there are no extensions. And then I'm going to have Abigail Rogers come and give you a quick report on BZA activities.
Good morning. There are currently no BZA cases awaiting hearing. On October 26th, the BZA heard cases 6350 and 6348. Case 6350 was for a conditional use as a country inn, as well as a variance, at 1920 Bachman Valley Road in the Agricultural Zone, District 1, Manchester. Case 6348 was for a conditional use for a landscape supply yard on London Town Boulevard in the C3 Zone, District 5, Sykesville. Both BZAs were approved. On October 27th, the BZA heard case 6349, Freedom's Grant. This was for a retirement home on Arrington Road in the R20,000 Zone, District 5, Eldersburg. This use was also approved.
Are there any questions? And if you recall the last BZA case that Abigail mentioned for Freedom's Grant, that was for the conditional use approval of the retirement home. Even though it's a misnomer, it's a community, retirement community, and you all did approve the density of that prior to it going to BZA, which is the proper procedure. So at some point they'll be back, I'm sure, with a site plan for your review as well.
Thank you.
And that is all I have for my administrative report this morning.
Thank you, Linda. Okay. Next on the agenda, we've already done the election, so the administrative rules and proposed 2022 meeting dates.
So with the proposed administrative rules, I'm just going to pull up really quickly, just a brief proposal, I believe we discussed at our last virtual meeting, had to do with the inclement weather policy, just for a clarification more than anything, because we are in this hybrid virtual and in-person environment. So section 3.6 is our inclement weather policy, and we follow Carroll County Public Schools. So if they are closed, we are closed. And then there are times when they are not in session as well that we may have to close, and that would be on an as-needed basis. If the county office building closes for whatever reason, or it's an evening meeting and we determine at some point in time that during the day it's just too treacherous to travel. I know we have this virtual ability, but we need to be able to be here to stream this, and we can't do that if the building's closed. So I thought it would just make it clearer to say in person or virtual, because I didn't want anyone to think, well, we can still do it virtually even though we can't drive to the county office building or whatever. It's just better just to have, I think, a blanketed policy regarding virtual. Are there any questions, comments, concerns with that?
So I do.
Okay.
I'm curious as to where this policy came from. And the reason I ask is because that there are times when Carroll County Public Schools are closed, but the government is not. Why wasn't the policy sort of tailored after the county office building or county government, if you will?
That I am not sure of. This has been our policy for as long as I can remember, that we
Okay.
follow Carroll County Schools. And I would venture to guess that it's because they make announcements about school closures on the TV and radio, and that's widely known. So if we have a policy that can be widely distributed and that follows that, it just makes it better for getting the word out that we will not be having planning commission that day.
Okay, it was curious. I guess I just didn't realize this was in place, so.
Yep.
Perhaps a look at this in the future. I mean, if county government's open and the schools are not, I believe we should continue to operate here.
So that's
just
a discussion. We can change that too. I mean,
Right.
that's what this November is about. We review these administrative rules and procedures every November. So if that is something that the planning commission would like to consider, is just not even following Carroll County Public Schools policy and just following if the county is open or shut, that's something for your discussion as well.
It's food for thought, folks. I don't know, because there are many times that, again, they close, and I'm going to I don't want to really be too blunt here, but there are times when schools are closed and folks go, wait, what? And county government is fully operational, and off we go. And we have a really good process here with a conference call at dark 30 in the morning with our roads departments and our facility folks that make that decision. Now, Carroll County Public Schools listens in on that, but the county in most cases makes independent decisions, not based on what the schools are doing. So I just want to be clear about that. Just because the schools are closed doesn't mean that county government is. So that's why I did, again, food for thought. I'm not suggesting one way or the other, but just something to think about. I believe that, our operations here go, we do an extensive look in the morning as to whether or not we're operating or not. So I'll leave it there.
The great thing about, well, there's no great thing about the pandemic, but I think we've all learned, how to do things virtually, and that's given us a level of flexibility, but it also has created this level of complexity, right? Because we have people who think the meeting's here. We talked about this last week. They think the meeting's here, and all of a sudden we cancel it, and we can do everything in our power to communicate those changes, but people will still be wondering where and if the meeting is on. So, I'm fine following, doing what the county is doing. If the county's open, we're open. I'm fine with that. I think my concern is how we make people aware that, is the meeting on? Is it off? When will that decision be made? And how will it be communicated to the public? Because the public needs to be aware, because we don't want them on the roads if we're not. So, and again, Linda, I don't have a solution for this. Where there's, again, with flexibility comes complexity, and I don't know how to fix it, because again, I think we do a pretty good job communicating, and we still have people complaining that, hey, I thought the meeting was on. So I don't know what to do.
And I think we will always have people complaining. Honestly, it's just human
Yeah,
nature.
you're not going to get around that. And actually,
Yeah.
when we instituted Carroll Connect, which is a part of our website now, where it's very easy, it takes you about a minute and a half, and as you know, everybody's got at least one of these things somewhere. When you sign up with Carroll Connect, you get the latest information on this little device as to whether or not we're open or not. A little bit easier than what we do when we're following the schools, because that doesn't come over our Carroll Connect phones. So that's another reason why, I don't know, I just feel that this is a little bit antiquated, where we should really be following county government as opposed to the school system.
So how do we get people to sign up for Carroll Connect?
You want me to do another commercial?
Sure.
It's very easy to do. You go onto our website.
I'll show it.
There you go. Usually when we bring these up in session, before we get it out of our mouth, Chris Swam goes whoop, and up it comes. So, but on our website, and he'll bring it up, you can go there. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris.
Linda, can you pull up the virtual? Should be minimized at the bottom.
Got it. So this is on our website, correct, Chris?
That is correct. You just need to look for this little icon here in our footer, and also multiple places, every page of our website. There's something called Carroll Connect, email notices, subscribe here. Just click on there, enter your email, and choose your topic.
And does that activate cell phones as well? Do we put cell
That
phones?
is correct.
Yeah, okay.
If your email is attached to your cell phone, we use text notifications internally. There's a cost associated with that.
Okay. So there you have it. So that makes it a lot easier to get the latest information right on this device. So I just feel it might be better, again, to upgrade this particular policy and perhaps go with county government as opposed to Carroll County Public Schools.
So would there be a possibility on our meeting agendas to put a little blurb out, just reminding people they can sign up with Carroll Connect?
We can, absolutely. So we can change 3.6 then to say, in the event Carroll County government is closed due to weather-related issues, any scheduled business meetings, in-person or virtual, will be canceled. So we can just change
Done.
that language, and then on our agendas and on the Planning Commission website, we can put please sign up for Carroll Connect for alerts, and then we will post on our website as well if meetings are canceled because of weather and the county office is closed. So we make sure that everyone will be directed to always check prior to any meeting.
Yep, that's perfect. Thank
So-
you.
Do you need a motion to make that change? Or
If you
just-
all are ready to do that today, we can do that, correct, Jim? Yeah, we can do that if you're ready to take that motion today, or if you wanted to wait till our next meeting.
Okay.
So I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Alright.
Okay. Any against? Okay.
Okay, we
Motion
will,
carries.
we'll change this, and then for our next meeting, we will have, you sign off then on the new administrative rules and procedures for
Okay,
this year.
great.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, do we have anything on the meeting dates?
Laura, the meeting dates, can you please review that with everyone?
Hopefully you still have them from the last time, or remember them, or can refer to them. I think the only question, and again, a lot of these we can and we do end up canceling as it gets closer because things come up that we didn't plan on. I didn't know if you wanted to make a decision on the July 6th one ahead of time, knowing that people are usually on vacation, or if that's something you wanted to wait until it got closer.
I thought we had said last time, we'd just leave it on just in case, but knowing that most people will be away, because Jeff already told us he would be.
Okay, so we'll leave that one as it is. And then for the December one, it is currently scheduled to be December 20th. There were 2 or 3 years ago, we had one that week, kind of right before Christmas, and it was very stressful for lots of people. So that following year, we had decided to move it up. So that would be moving it to December 13th. And again, do you want to make that decision now, or do you want to wait till it gets closer?
I'm in favor of moving it up.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Next year.
Well, that's next year. Okay, my
Yeah.
bad. I apologize. I'm looking at the calendar for.
Oh, next year,
I-
yes.
I-
2022.
So for example, for this year, we did do that. So our meeting is the 14th of December instead of December
Yeah.
21st. We had made that
Yeah.
decision last year.
Yeah, I apologize. Yeah, I'm fine.
Does that seem good?
Yes, I think.
And then, I just noted, the summer Mako, so that would be from Mako 2022. Those dates aren't yet published. But the winter, they do go ahead and show that that is gonna happen in January 2023 because it's an election year.
Okay.
Just to note on there.
And we typically cancel for that because typically I attend and our commissioner attends as well as others. So sometimes it's a little hard, especially during summer Mako, because typically development review, there's always some representative from other departments going, and so it makes it a little challenging for summer Mako too, to have that meeting that week as well.
Okay.
But you don't have to worry about that yet because that's January 2023.
Okay, that's good.
Okay. So, all right, I will make these official, post them on our website, and
Okay.
we're good. All right, thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you.
All right, now that's all the business that we had for the administrative rules and procedures as well as proposed meeting dates. Are there any other questions or comments or?
I just wanted to also add, the reason why a recess is there is because typically, when we would do an election, we would have a recess to kind of reset and resit everybody, but I don't know that you need to do that now.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about the need for that. So unless somebody needs a recess.
I will say the pace of this meeting is such that we may want to elect you as chair, so.
No, I have faith in Jeff.
No, I do too. I have faith in Jeff too, but I'm just saying, this is a good pace. You keep it up. Let's do this.
Okay, well, we will forego the recess. Next is a special report. Mr. Beecroft?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Ms. Vice Chair. As mentioned, the next item on the agenda is a special report for a grading only plan, file number GRO-20-0018, and this is for the Saltbox Park trail that is proposed. My name is David Becraft with the Bureau of Development Review, and with me is Mr. Jeff Daggett, who is the Director of Recreation and Parks. And as mentioned, this is a project that is proposing a new trail which will span from Saltbox Park, which is along Gillis Falls Road, down to a small parking area on Grimville Road. And I'll show you as we go through this presentation. Generally, for grading only plans, this does not need to go before the Planning and Zoning Commission. However, in accordance with county and state code, we are here looking for determination of consistency with this plan, with the master plan, the Carroll County Master Plan. So for those who are not familiar, this project is down on the southern portion of the county. This is Gillis Falls Road here. This is Grimville Road down here, and this is John Pickett Road here. So this project is comprised of multiple parcels that are owned by the Carroll County Commissioners. The affected parcels are the ones that are outlined here. And for the most part, as you can see, the property is pretty undeveloped. Saltbox Park is located up here with access to Gillis Falls Road. And the Equestrian Center is down here off of Grimville Road. The adjoining properties that adjoin the county-owned lands, they're all zoned conservation, and they are either comprised of residential lots or are undeveloped. So on December 11th of 2020, which is last year, a grading only plan for Gillis Falls Park Phase 1 was submitted to the Bureau of Development Review. Essentially what is proposed is a 12-foot wide trail, again, which will span from Saltbox Park up here, and it's difficult to see on here, but there's a trail that kind of meanders through the lands, kind of parallel to the stream, down to a parking area, a new parking area down here off of Grimville Road. There are pedestrian bridges that are proposed for the portions of the trail that will cross over the existing stream, and the trail is intended to be utilized by hikers, bikers, and equestrians as well. There will be locked gates at each end of the trail to prevent vehicles from entering the trail except for maintenance or emergency purposes. Non-vehicle trail access can be accomplished at each end through openings that are adjacent to the gates. And to give a better idea, I'm going to zoom in on some parts here. So this is Saltbox Park. This is the proposed paving that is going to span from the entrance down to this parking area here. And this parking area will provide 15 parking spaces, 2 of which will be ADA accessible. And down off of Grimville here, this is the new proposed parking area down here. And this will be comprised of 19 parking spaces, 2 of which, again, will be handicap accessible. So to kind of give an idea as to with this being consistent with the master plan, with the help of the Department of Planning, we pulled out some snippets from the Carroll County Master Plan, and so I'm just going to go through those here. So within Chapter 3, which is Vision and Goals, and that's on page 24, goal number 9 states to provide an affordable, coordinated, and comprehensive system of public and private parks, recreational facilities and programs, and open space that will enhance our communities. Within Chapter 11, which is for parks, and on page 85, it states, it is essential in areas that must rely upon surface water as their main water supply that reservoir sites be planned in advance of their need and that they be well protected after their creation. Fortunately, this has created the opportunity to develop low-impact recreational facilities such as boating areas, hiking trails, picnic area, and bridle paths on the land surrounding reservoirs. Within that same chapter, on the same page, number 85, it also states, beyond simply being nearby places for play, these parks and open space facilities provide numerous other advantages to residents and their surrounding neighborhoods. Community benefits include promoting convenient opportunities for healthy community activities and lifestyles, safe and child-accessible recreation space for organized and individual sports, and aesthetically pleasing green space. Within the same chapter, on page 87, it states the county should plan for and provide its citizens with a network of parks, recreation areas, and open space that serve the need of the entire population to the greatest extent possible. And finally, within the same chapter, on page 156, it states preserve the Union Mills and Gillis Falls area for passive recreation uses. So through this process, Recreation and Parks has held multiple public meetings with the local communities. On August 24th, 2021, the Department of Recreation and Parks had a public meeting at the Chaladon Golf Course, which is very close to Saltbox Park. And they wanted to provide an update on the project's progress. There were no significant objections at that meeting. However, there were some questions raised regarding the parking and bridge surfacing for the equestrian users. So as a follow-up, Mr. Daggetts, who is to my left, attended a meeting of the Carroll County Equestrian Council on September 7th to provide more insight into the bridge surfacing and address citizen concerns. So in reference to the review agencies, Soil Conservation as well as Grading and Sediment Control have granted approval of the plans. This site is subject to the requirements of stormwater management, and due to the proximity of the trail to the existing stream, the proposed trail is also subject to the requirements of water resources and floodplain. So this project will still progress through the grading only review process, but we didn't want to get all the way to the end and then have to come to the Planning Commission and hold up the project in any way. So we wanted to get this in front of you guys now so that you can review it and make a determination. So as mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, so in accordance with Carroll County Code as well as the Annotated Code of Maryland, and both of those snippets have been included in your report, staff recommends that the Planning Commission find the grading only plan as consistent with the Carroll County Master Plan. And that's all I have. I'll go through some pictures of the site here. So all four of these pictures are up at Saltbox Park. The bottom left shows the entrance, and then the two on the, actually the rest of the three show where the proposed paving will be. Top left is going to be where the parking area is, as well as the bottom right. And then the top right is going to be where the trail extends out of. On to the next slide here, just more pictures of Saltbox Park. So the trail is going to extend out here and wrap around the existing ballpark that's already there. There is going to be paving down towards the second ballpark as well. And then just a couple shots of Saltbox Park here. And this is the entrance to the park. Again, this is going to be paved as part of this grading only plan. There is going to be a new sign that's proposed and a new access gate as well. And finally, this is off of Grimville Road. So you can see there's a pretty tight hairpin turn here with a parking area shown here. And there's a lot of leaves, so I apologize, it's difficult to see here. And this is the existing entrance to the wildlife management area that's currently there. So again, I'd be happy, or Mr. Daggetts would be happy to answer any questions or concerns you guys may have.
I'll ask, is the parking area sufficient for horse trailer, turnaround, drop off, that sort of thing?
That's a great question. The parking area at Grimville Road really is designed for vehicles and not trailers. The equestrian center is literally right up the hill from that, and there is parking on the outside of the fence for the equestrian center and that's where horse trailers would be directed to park.
Okay.
So my memory of Grimville Road is kind of windy, and I do see that hairpin turn there. Are there, and it is a county road, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So it's blacktopped and marked well.
Yes. And actually, the gate that you see there is the former entrance to the old Camp Woodbrook. It was a summer church camp, I believe, for a number of years before the county purchased it. Sections of this trail are already in place, including that old service road, which is now repurposed as a trail. People currently park outside that gate on the turn. This will be creating a new parking lot inside the gate. We'll basically be pushing that gate back, so it'll make for much safer access for people.
Okay. Anybody have any other comments?
I'll ask about the bridges and equestrian. You know, how did you resolve? I'm just curious, as a former horse owner, what kind of surface is it going to be, and how did you resolve that with the equestrian community?
It's actually kind of funny because I've been doing this for a while, and you never cease to learn new things.
Right.
And we've worked with the equestrian group for a number of years. They had some concerns about a bridge with a wooden surface that's going to be in shaded areas where potentially
Slick.
you get some slick spots.
Right.
And if they're going to be arched at all, traction for horses could be an issue. And one of the things we discussed was basically paint with granular paint.
Okay.
It has sand or some other substances in there, and you will need to do that on an ongoing basis to monitor that, but that will provide safe traction for the horses crossing the bridges.
Any, Matt, do you have anything? Dean?
Nothing about this project, but I can't help but state this publicly, and maybe it's been said over and over again. But the job that you did with the renovation at Deer Park was just so outstanding. And it's being used so well, the design and how quickly it was built is really a tribute to the park. So, I'm a user of that park. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback, and we're very pleased with how that project turned out.
Very good. Okay, well, if we have no other questions, I think we do need an,
Public comment. There's a lot of public comment that have signed up for this particular item.
Okay.
Laura Bavetta has the names of those who have signed up. So if we can get those on the line, and Laura will call the names of the individuals who would like to comment on this particular item.
I'm not sure exactly how this is gonna work with them controlling that in the back. I'm just calling the names, but, so the first person that we have signed up is Bernadette Thorne. Is that Bernadette Thorne?
Call the next meeting. We'll come back.
Okay, Brian Boone.
Yeah, my comments were, or questions are, about the parking at the Salt Box. You said there was going to be 15 parking spots.
That's correct.
So, as far as the ball fields, is there going to be enough parking for competitors and people playing ball, as well as people walking these paths?
This was one of the items that was discussed at the public meetings and also at a meeting with the Woodbine Recreation Council. And there's various opinions on this, but from our perspective, we believe there will be sufficient parking, both where players have parked before, and then also if you come in the entrance to the park and go straight ahead, there's additional parking there as well. So we do believe it'll be sufficient. And the trail usage, you're going to get people coming and going throughout the day. It won't be large influxes of people at one time like you see in the ball fields.
Okay, and then the next question I had was about the maintenance of the path. I know there's a significant amount of water that flows through there. I'm sure that the path is going to get eroded. The bridge is probably washed out. Where's the money going to come from to maintain this path?
The trail will be maintained just as we maintain our other park sites and do maintenance on ball fields and mowing different areas. The trail will be designed in a way to try to minimize that maintenance as much as possible. So in terms of any runoff or stormwater, we'll try to minimize the impact on the trail itself. We also have an issue with pushback through the woods in there, so potentially an ongoing issue as well.
Isn't it a low-lying area that is susceptible to being washed out, a wetlands area that you're going to be going through?
We will be avoiding the wetlands as much as possible, and where we can't avoid them, there will be bridges to go over them. And again, it'll be designed in a way to try to minimize that maintenance as much as possible. One of the challenges is the best viewpoints tend to be in the low areas along the streams. It's also a little more challenging to build the trails there. On the plus side, they are level, so that helps make it ADA accessible by building it in those low areas.
What's the elevation change from where the trail is going to be to the creek bed?
That's not something I could answer off the top of my head. I would have to take a look at the plans, and that's something that we could certainly get back to you with. But the grade of the trail itself is not going to differentiate by more than just a couple of percentage points of grade, maybe 2%, 3% grade.
Okay, I think the plan might need to be reviewed a little bit more, just because of the fact that how much water does flow down through there, and there's significant washouts down through there now from when the water crests the banks of the river. It doesn't take much.
Now, I can appreciate that. And again, a lot of those four-wheeler trails have created some alleys for the water to accumulate there, and that has added to some of the challenges. But we are working with all of the necessary review agencies to try to make sure we do this in the most sensible way with the least impact.
Okay. I guess that being said, the only other thing is just the maintenance of it. I think I'd like to know where the money's going to come from to maintain this path, and how many times it's going to have to wash out before we say, okay, bad idea.
We're hopeful we don't have sections of the trail wash out. The maintenance for county parks in general is currently budgeted through Public Works through the Bureau of Facilities. So that's where those funds would be budgeted.
Okay.
And to answer your question in reference to the grade change, just taking a quick look at the plans, as mentioned by Mr. Daggett, the trail does kind of meander through the woods. So there's points where it's closer and there's points where it's further. Just looking at the points where it's closer to the stream, it looks like it is a roughly, we'll say 5 or 10 foot vertical change.
Okay, and then for safety aspect, when it is flooding, how are we going to keep people out of there?
A lot of that will happen. It is not a staffed area, so a lot of that will be determinations made by the users of the trail. And for the most part, if they start to hit some muddy stretches, I think a lot of folks are going to turn around at that point. But it is not staffed. We will not be monitoring it that way. On a daily basis, we will monitor it for ongoing maintenance issues.
Because it seems like it's also a safety concern for, it doesn't take long for the water to rise, and if you're in there and get caught in a thunderstorm, the county's actually putting people's safety at risk by putting this trail in.
Thank you. I think we need to go to our next caller. Jessica Harrison.
Hi, thank you. I have a couple questions. I actually live on the other side of the salt box. So my property backs up to that county area that is across from the salt box. And I have a lot of questions. I was actually at the meeting that was at the golf course, and I think there is some miscommunication with both the Park and Rec, the Woodbine Park and Rec, and the Carroll County Community Horse Council, also with the community that lived in 21797. We were never surveyed. I know you guys put it on Facebook. I appreciate that you are using social media to reach out, but the people that actually were surveyed was less than 1% of the population in Carroll County, which did not include anyone that lived in 21797. We were not happy, so I'm not sure where that came from. The majority of the people that actually lived in that area not attended the meeting, but lived in that area, is very concerned about this walking trail. You also have Krimgold Park currently in the area, the zip code of 21797, which is not completed at this time. If you have money to spend on a park that has so many concerns about how you're going to communicate to the public, hunters, safety, planning of the water, the water that rises down there, I mean, it's majority swamp. When we questioned the people that were putting on the gentleman that came out to the actual meeting, they just kept saying they needed to go back to the drawing board. There is much concern to the safety of the public and the community members that live in that 21797 area.
Okay, thank you for your comment.
I'm sorry, hold on. Excuse me. This needs to be addressed. It does not, I feel strongly about saying that everybody was happy or everybody was okay. This was not surveyed properly. This is not how you survey when you don't even include anyone in that 21797 zip that actually lives there.
Okay, if I may.
Go ahead, please.
The survey that was referenced at the public meeting was the needs assessment survey that the county completed earlier this year. As mentioned in the meeting, there were a couple of components to that survey. One was a random survey where people were randomly selected from throughout the county, from the property tax records, and people got an opportunity to say which facilities they wanted to see, which types were most important to them. And then there was also an open component to that survey, which was posted on our website. And we received over 1,000 responses in total to that needs assessment survey. And those responses came from throughout the county, and anyone within Woodbine or any other community had the opportunity to participate in that survey. And obviously with over 1,000 responses, many people chose to participate in that survey. So that's what was referenced at that public meeting. And the folks overwhelmingly said that trails, and particularly trails that would go from one location to another, were by far their highest priority. So that was the survey that was referenced. And then the other thing he brought up was Krimgold Park, and with that site not being finished, that is correct. There were substantial program open space funds years back that were budgeted for the completion of Krimgold Park. Those funds were diverted at the state level, and it's been done by governors from both parties, and they're scheduled to be paid back at some point in the future, but to date have not yet been paid back. So those funds potentially could address funding the remainder of Krimgold Park. That is a paved walking trail at Krimgold Park. It is a loop trail. It is not a trail that goes from one place to another and could not accommodate equestrians.
I think that one of the, go ahead.
No, that was it.
Sorry. One thing I think that needs to be communicated though is the communication that is going to go out to the people using the trail. The Equestrian Council, I feel like the people that were at the meeting at the golf course they were under the impression that they would be able to park horse trailers off of Gillis Falls. That's not happening. I think it just needs to be very clear, since evidently this is in place, it's going to happen. But the way that you're going to communicate to everyone that is going to be able to use this trail needs to be clear, including when are we going to be able, are people going to be able to hunt down there? How is this going to be communicated? How is the safety? How is like the water rising? All these things need to be communicated, not put on the back burner of we'll get to it when we can or when it comes about. The safety, I'm telling you, the safety is going to come back and bite y'all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I need to go. Thank you.
Next caller, John Arnold.
Hello. I represent a bunch of trail users, just bikers and hikers, and also help maintain some of the trails that are there at Gillis Falls. And so I'd like to just lend our support. We're really excited to see something like this happen in the southern part of Carroll County. So right now, many trail users are, they're driving out of Carroll County to do this, and they go to parks like Little Bennett that have similar paths along similar streams, and they go to other places and spend their money there, and they could be doing that here in Carroll County. So I think it's going to be a great thing. I understand there's some concerns from the neighboring landowners, but I live in Mount Airy, and a lot of other people do too that use those trails now and are excited about this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
And I'm going to go back to Bernadette Thorne. Is Bernadette Thorne on the line?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
This is Bernadette Thorne. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, hi, good morning. I'm sorry. I just had some problems with my phone. Okay, I live on Grimville Road, right above the entrance to the park that you're proposing. My main concern right now is safety also. That curve that goes around that bend right there is very dangerous. And now you're talking about more people coming on to that parking lot with kids, horses, and the visibility is terrible. Somebody had mentioned in the meeting that it was well marked. That's not true. It is not well marked. It's a very dangerous situation for people coming in and out of that parking lot, and there's going to be more traffic. That's my first concern. And I want to know how somebody else had mentioned about the compatibility of hunting and hikers on that trail, especially this time of year. Can you address that?
Yes.
Hello?
First of all, for the parking situation, the trail or sections of the trail are in existence currently, and people are parking in the road in Grimville Road along that turn. By pushing the parking area back, developing a parking area, which is actually behind where the gate is currently located, that will give people a safer location to park off of the road. It doesn't make the curve straighter, but it does get those vehicles off of the road and into a safe parking area. And again, horse trailers would not be parking there. They would be parking up by the entrance to the equestrian center. And then you also had a question regarding hunting. Hunting has coexisted with the trail use both in that area and up in Union Mills for years. So that it's largely a communication effort, and also we would need to look at the exact areas that are being used where hunting is allowed. And there will be discussions with the state as far as what those areas are, how they're defined, and then how we notify the public. Currently, that's been done with signage at both sites.
Like the gentleman said before me, a lot of people come out of county, people that aren't really familiar with places for hunting and stuff. And my question is this: I've had hunters over there that people go over there and they come upon the hunter because, I guess it's a lottery system. And the hunters have to wear bright orange and wear all this stuff. And these other people are not even aware of what's going on over there. And they just come right up almost near the hunters, and they can barely see them at times.
So a lot of people aren't familiar, especially if they come out of state, about our hunting situation. Another thing about the safety of that parking lot, just because you push that parking lot back doesn't mean that curve is safe for people coming in and out of that parking lot, especially when you have kids and other things that are going on. There's going to be a lot more activity there. And people come around that curve, and it's a blind curve. I think before any parking lot or anything is done, that curve or something has to be done to that section to have much better visibility for everybody concerned.
Okay, thank you for calling in. That's all the callers that I have received notifications about. I don't know if there are any others. That's it. Okay.
Thank you, Laura. And thank you for those that called in. Okay, so you're looking for a recommendation from us to do the grading. Is that correct?
So essentially, we're looking for determination from the Planning Commission for consistency of what's proposed with the Carroll County Master Plan.
So, I did prepare a letter, if we want to open that up for them, just so I can see.
David, while you do that, can I go to that, can we talk about the comment on the road there? When people
Along
turn,
Grenville?
Yeah, when people come down the road and turn right, is there a deceleration lane proposed to turn into the park?
There is not. There's very limited traffic that would be coming in and out at any given moment. It is very much unlike parks where we have ball fields where you have large numbers of people
Right.
coming and leaving at the same time.
Okay.
So, there is a letter of consistency that could be prepared under my signature, for this. And so, the letter states, at its meeting of November 16th, 2021, the Carroll County Planning and Zoning Commission was presented with the proposed project for Gillis Falls Park Trail Section 1. The commission reviewed the proposal and compared it to the applicable sections of the adopted 2014 Carroll County Master Plan as amended in 2019, especially those relating to Chapter 3, the vision statement and goals, and Chapter 11, parks, and concluded these goals support this trail. And then the goals that are listed in your staff report are reiterated in this letter, as well as it also is consistent with the 2017 Land Preservation Parks and Recreation Plan, which is developed by Recreation and Parks. So if you all are agreeable to this, that letter has been prepared, and so we would need a motion to approve that letter. And consistency.
Okay.
We still have a quorum?
Do we still have a quorum? Jean stepping in?
Yes, because Commissioner Wance is here, he counts as the quorum, but not for the voting, but can Janice vote now? Because there's only 3. She's chair.
Oh, yeah, unless it's tied.
Unless it's,
Yeah,
so if it was, I don't know, do we know where Mr. Canali stepped off to?
I'm not sure if somebody
Maybe
voted
they can,
in
because they
check.
have a quorum, so I think they can vote unless there's.
I'd like to just make a comment. I'm just sitting here looking at Greenville Road there. Does the county own any of the property on the other side, or probably not, where they would go in and out? 'Cause
Where
it
the
does-
entrance is at Grenville Road?
Yeah.
Yes. County does own that. It does drop off towards the water, and you do get into wetlands pretty quickly. And then on the upper side of that entrance, you have a pretty significant elevation change, which takes you up towards the equestrian center.
Because I was just, I can see where it could possibly be a problem, looking at it from an aerial map.
It's a hairpin.
That it could be, that either maybe some speed bumps or, you know, clearing it out so people can see a little bit farther around the corner. You get some high school driving down the road 80 miles an hour, coming around the corner and something's turning in, it could be an issue. Yeah, and on the other end, I assume right now everyone just parks in the grass at the ball fields now, and that.
A lot of it is in the grass, some of it is in millings,
Okay.
so we'll be expanding on that.
So, given that Mr. Canali has stepped away, we still do have a quorum because of Commissioner Wance's
Excuse me a
attendance.
minute. I just received an email that there is another caller. a David Lewis.
Okay.
For this particular item? Okay.
Is there a David Lewis line as a caller?
This is Chris. One caller just left. It might have been him.
Okay. All right. Well, then we're going to go ahead and proceed with the rest of this agenda item. So a vote can occur. However, we would need Commissioner Wance to vote if you're able. There's no conflict. You won't hear this again. It's just for consistency with the plan because Ms. Kirkner can't vote since she's chair of this meeting. And the only way she would vote is if there was a tie on a particular matter.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that.
Okay.
And I want to be clear, this is about the consistency with the master plan. This is in no way saying, here goes the trail and off we,
That's right.
we're gonna start putting bulldozers over there. This is about the decision about the consistency with the master plan. I
Right.
want to be clear.
Oh, here comes Mr. Canali now. Okay. And that is required by state laws to have this consistency and why we are doing it for this particular effort.
Right.
So with that, we would need a motion, and now Mr. Canali is back in the room, so we can vote now without that issue.
Can I have a motion?
I move to approve that the improvements proposed are in keeping with the consistency of the master plan.
In a second.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. That motion carries, and I will present Mr. Diggins with the letter then.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Jeff, while you're on the hot seat, just
Yes,
for
sir.
me, what's the next steps after this now? Just, I'm curious.
We are still working through the permitting process, dealing with stormwater management and issues like that. We anticipate that we would be at a point where we could get construction drawings drawn up, hopefully in the spring, and potentially put this out to bid in the spring. And we continue to incorporate the information we're getting in comments at these public meetings and today, whether it's improved signage marking the entrance, improved communication with hunters in nearby areas. And that's something that can be done both on our website and on the hunting websites. And any of those issues, we'll try to incorporate as much of that as possible into the project.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I think public awareness for hunting is a big thing. I know my granddaughters run through the woods and I'm like, wear something bright because you don't want to be in their sights. So, okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, next we have the water and sewer fall amendment. I think Linda's deaf, but
That's it.
That's it?
Yeah.
Sure.
Whenever you can.
As you say, anything though.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, there's something sorry.
No, it was weird to add something
Yeah.
else for more. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Just here, you actually, roughly last week, that I briefed you, introduction for the water and sewer master plan amendment cycle for the fall cycle. So as you may remember, there are three amendments. The Freedom Sykesville area has one sewer map amendment. Westminster Water Service area has one map amendment as well as a, when it comes to the tables. And then Manchester has both water and sewer amendments. So first we will look at the Freedom area. This property is right off of Liberty Road, Maryland 26. This is the Edwardsburg Exchange. And this property owner currently is in loan range. However, his septic system is in the process of needing to be replaced.
So he looked into it and realized the cost to replace the septic is about the same amount of money it would be to tie into sewer. And since he has surrounding property owners are currently connected to the sewer service area, and he has an easement in his deed with this property owner back here to tie into the sewer service, he has requested to be included into the sewer service area to tie into sewer versus being on septic in that aspect. So it's just one dwelling. It'll be only adding roughly 250 gallons to the service area, which, looking at the numbers, is a very small amount, and the actual table doesn't change at all. And this is up in this area right here, right below Washington Road, right there. So we'll be putting this portion of that development, pretty much all of it now except will be on sewer, except for these two properties down here. Because the sewer line runs through these properties over to Yarrow Way. Now for the city of Westminster, this property is the Dole property, which backs up to Stonegate. And this is, the subdivision that my sister and brother-in-law used to live in. They are requesting to be removed from the water service area. The property owner has requested, he's been in the water service area, has no want at this time to do any development on the property. As he stated in the letter that he sent, that was part of the original packet. He doesn't want to, he's tired of paying the taxes pertaining to the water allocation that he says the town or the city requires. So removing this property would recoup and take out roughly 7,300 gallons from the city of Westminster. The question was brought up earlier, even though these properties are on existing water, they are on septic. So this property would still be able to be developed, but it would just be on well and septic, which would be 7 lots. So there are, in essence, with no plans, to my knowledge, ever to put sewer into that older subdivision that the city itself did certify last week that this is consistent with their 2009 comp plan. And these two properties are not part of the Stonegate subdivision. This section actually is, but this property is, even though it looks like two parcels, it is one parcel. It's just split by this portion of the Stonegate subdivision, which I believe is mainly going to be maybe a couple of homes, but mostly is going to be water or stormwater management type areas. Again, down here on the main map, you can see just the last section of the water service area for the city of Westminster. Now going into Manchester.
Hold on, back up
Yes,
to
sir.
that. I can't tell on that map. Where in the world is Stonegate?
Stonegate is right off the extension of.
Give me a couple cross streets here.
Old Westminster Pike is right up here, and the extension for Center Street, not Center Street, Market Street, would come out right here.
Okay.
Yeah, it's that whole big community.
That brand new development that we need.
Okay.
That's
I kept going Stonegate in my mind, Janice, and I'm like, where?
Yeah, they put a circle, like.
the traffic circle right there on Highway.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Oh,
Okay.
Westminster Pike.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you. So this is now the town of Manchester. There are 4 properties in the water service area that they are looking to come out, and then only 3 properties in the sewer service area. This portion right here off of Locust Street is a portion of the 3 Russells LLC property, which is currently partly in the town and partly in the county. The portion that's in the town, which is also the portion they're looking to remove from the water and sewer service area, is in the process, in the beginning stages of potentially putting solar on that portion of the land. So the town has asked for that portion to be removed and put into long range, which would free up allocation, potentially if it gets approved. And also, since solar typically never has water and or sewer needs, it will alleviate that aspect. But being placed in long range allows, should down the road, way down the road, the solar be removed and the property owner want to do something, we could move the steps forward to put them potentially back in the service area if the capacity is there. At this point in time, we're removing this particular property, this portion of the property from the sewer and water service area, and that'll free up capacity for the other portion of Manchester. This portion is the Thomas Tree Farm on the northern portion of Manchester, and they requested to be removed from the service area. And they actually, this potential property has the potential for 107 lots. And currently they're in a future service area they'd like to be put into long range, which would reduce the amount of demand by 26,250 gallons for this particular property. They are in the process of going into, they applied for ag preservation easement through the county. In my understanding, talking with the town as well as ag preservation, is some portion of the property they would like to work with the town to put it into water recharge for the town for water recharge purposes. This portion of the property, again, this is Manchester Valley High. This is what I call the Lippy property. But actually it's Woodhaven Development owns it now. This was the Lippy property, and this was what was called Old Town, which is a subdivision that was approved and platted back in about 1974, never built. So Woodhaven Building and Development has purchased both portions of the property, and they're looking to put in a total of 40 units, 40 single-family homes. This portion of the living property is currently in the water service area and the sewer service area. So this allows for eight homes. We're looking to bring in the rest of the property and only adding 32 homes total. That would be a total demand increase of 8,000 gallons. This is another portion of a subdivision that's looking to come in, which is the Patriots Overlook, PV Manchester. You have Highway 27 right here, Maryland 27. This is, they own multiple lots, but this portion right here is what is currently, this was just annexed in. This was currently in the town limits, but they're looking to, what was annexed in was not in the sewer or water service area, so they're looking to bring that in. So this actual property for demand, there's 38 lots that are planned. 26 lots are already in the service area, which includes, they have some lots down here, and this is sort of split up. This is the main portion that is bringing in the rest of it. So we'll be adding 11 lots to the priority water service area. And looking at the map overall, the Locust Lane, which is the solar farm, this is the Woodhaven development property across from Manchester Valley High. This is Patriots Overlook, and then this is the Thomas Tree Farm. So 2 of them will go to long range, which means their allocation will be removed from the demand tables, and then 2 properties will be coming in or will be added. So for the water, the net change is actually they will be removing 23,750 gallons from their demand for water.
Got a quick, could you go back to that slide?
This one, yes.
When we do things like this, I mean, are there any unintended consequences to this that we're not thinking through in terms of, you know, if Manchester wanted to expand and as a designated growth area, and areas adjacent to these areas that we've moved from priority to long range, have we done something that is detrimental to the future growth of Manchester by doing this?
Well, typically no, because these were brought to us by the town themselves, so
Okay.
they actually made the request.
That's right.
So And with the Locust Lane one, they came to us and said, this is gonna go into solar.
Okay.
We don't see any reason for that to be in the water and sewer service area at this time.
Okay.
And so moving a property into long range, it helps with that planning aspect. And you'll see the tables in a minute. On a map, it shows long range, which means 10+ years or even longer. When you look at the table 15 for water and table 32 for sewer, you'll see only 3 categories are looked into: existing, priority, and future.
Okay.
So it stops at future is 7 years or 10 years.
Okay.
We don't take into account the long range, so MDE has said those numbers don't need to go towards your plant for your demand, because there may be other areas that there are sometimes there's towns that have a larger long range for water and sewer, that if you took those into account, their demand would far exceed their capacity. So long range sort of gives the towns the planning tool of, okay, should down the road our system gets upgraded, or we have more water recharge, or things like that, we can then potentially bring them back in. It's easier to put somebody into a future or priority service area than it is from long range, than it is to put somebody in the service area that was not intended at all without removing somebody.
Got it.
So.
That's great. Thank you for that explanation. That helps me.
So to follow up on that,
Yeah.
you bring up an interesting point, because we just took this up last week, we being the Board of Commissioners. The Thomas Tree Farm was actually in the DGA for Manchester. They vetted it to the nth degree because Mr. Thomas wanted to get into AgPres. So Manchester removed it from the DGA to allow Mr. Thomas to go into AgPres. And I'm glad you brought that up, because you're suggesting that it goes into long range. Well, if that's in AgPres, I'm not even sure, can it still be put, because that's in perpetuity, so
Right.
why would it be considered long range?
And that's a good question, and my thought was, what we may do is when if they do go into the water recharge, we would just cover that and make it a water recharge area versus long range. And I can talk with the town to verify if they really want to leave it in long range for whatever reason, which, like you said, is in perpetuity, so more than likely correct. No, they will
Right.
never go into it.
Okay. I do know that there was a little carve-out section.
Yes, sir.
That they made on the lower part of that, closest to the town of Manchester.
Correct.
That I believe had a well,
Correct.
a couple wells on it
That
for future.
is-
But
I'm not sure if that was.
But that's an interesting question, because we're seeing this a little bit more in some of the areas with DGA versus AgPres versus whatever. In this particular incident,
We're hemming him in. I mean, we're, the city of Manchester, we're hemming the city in.
But they're
We're doing
requesting it.
But-
Let's be
but-
clear.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not,
yeah,
so
again,
we're.
I want to make it
I mean,
clear
we're the
that,
kind of,
yeah, that's why I said Manchester vetted it to the nth
Right.
degree.
Yeah.
So to your concern, we see that, but yet it's up to the town to say, yeah, okay, we're good.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And it's one of these things where when the town of Manchester did their 2018 comprehensive plan, prior to 2018, the Thomas Tree Farm was not within their designated growth area. Then in 2018, I'm not sure if the town decided to expand into that area for the Thomas Tree Farm, if Mr. Thomas came forward on that aspect, I'm not sure. So it was put into, so prior to 2018, it was not within the growth area for the town, the municipal growth area. Then in 2018, they did put it within the municipal growth area. Now they're looking to remove, and the town, I believe, they said they're fine with that aspect of not needing to add any more potential homes. And this helps the bottom line when it comes to water, because they're removing 23,000 gallons of demand from the system.
I have a curious question. So you have priority, and then I forget the next one.
Future.
And then long range. So if we're in the middle group, and that's 7 to 10 years, 5 years down the road, do they, or 10 years down the road, do they automatically move over to priority and then long range move to the middle group?
They, the only time, like long range is by request. So the only time somebody will move from a future category into a priority category per se is if they were actually not on water and or sewer and they decide, okay, we want to connect. So it will be brought to us by either the town, if it's a subdivision, let's say a larger subdivision, or in the case for the one that we just showed for Freedom, by the landowner. It's by request, so we don't automatically move something in. The only time I would say we automatically move somebody is if a property is in priority, say a subdivision is in priority. So let's just use this aspect right here, the Lippy property, the Woodhaven property, which has potential for 40 homes, not potential, that's what they're gonna be building. That's shown right now in priority. They may start building homes, let's say, next year. But typically once those homes are connected, they're being served, they're being billed, but the map and the table we update typically every 2 years for an amendment, but if it's a big amendment. However, every 3 years, every year is twice a year we do an amendment. But every 3 years, which we're in the process of doing right now, which is the triennial update for the water and sewer master plan, where we look at it overall, that's where I look at and say, okay, now there's been 8 homes built on the Woodhaven property, we will move them automatically into existing because their existing numbers are already being accounted for in the data. But we typically do not move automatically yes, if you've been in the priority service area, even though it is correct, 0 to 6 years, sometimes it does take longer, but that is all the systems are first come, first served. So if you're in the 0 to 6 years, even though priority, that means you could actually technically hook up today if there is the infrastructure there.
Okay. It was just a curious question.
Good question. Helps.
Okay.
This is the sewer side of it. So roughly the same thing as the water, except for the Thomas Tree Farm, which was not on sewer at all. There was no plant service for sewer. It was just water. And that actually sort of goes to Commissioner Wance's thought. Even though they were on water, they didn't have septic, so you really couldn't subdivide and have that many lots you only have 7 lots on septic. So that was another reason they looked at it and said, well, we don't have the capacity to put them into the sewer service area, so let's remove at least and put it in long range. Again, the town may look at it and say, actually, we want to move it to no plan service at the triennial or even further down the road. They may look at it and say, it's not being accounted for, it's in perpetuity, we just want to make it water recharge and we'll be fine with that, or there's nothing at all. Again, the Lippy Woodhaven property, same thing. It is adding 8,000 gallons to the overall demand table. Here is the Patriots Overlook. Again, this is adding 2,700, a little over 2,700 gallons. So for these 3 properties, the net change is only adding 2,500 gallons to the overall town of Manchester demands for sewer. And they are in relatively good shape when it comes to capacity. And this is the table 15, so the priority planning and future planning numbers have been decreased. And with Westminster, those numbers have been decreased as well because it is overall the properties being removed and no new demand going in. For the sewer aspect, the Freedom numbers, even though they're highlighted, they didn't move. That 250 gallons is so nominal, it didn't move the numbers. For Manchester, it increased by 2,750 gallons with their with a potential of 595,000 gallons of plant capacity. They are well in the range of being consistent or compatible with their system. So we've updated the maps, the tables. The Town of Manchester Planning Commission certified consistency with their master plan on October 19th. And the City of Westminster last week certified consistency on November the 11th. So after today, the next thing, I'll be briefing the commissioners on Thursday morning and request a public hearing for hopefully December the 2nd. So those are the next steps from that aspect, and then we will have, if the public hearing occurs on the 2nd, decision discussion on the 16th, and then before the Christmas holidays, we will hopefully have it sent to NDE for their final approval. And when it comes to amendments, they do not become effective until NDE gives final approval. So until that time, the previous amendments that were done will be the ones that we will look into. So what I'm asking for is for the Planning Commission to recommend to certify the fall amendment to the Water and Sewer Master Plan is consistent with the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan, amended 2019, the 2018 Freedom Area Comprehensive Plan, the City of Westminster 2009 Comprehensive Plan, and the Town of Manchester 2018 Comp Plan, and then forward to the Board of County Commissions for adoption.
Okay. Do you have that?
We did, yeah. I move we approve and move it forward to the commissioners and state that it's consistent with the plans cited.
A second?
I'll second
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we have the letter here. If you need it signed today, or you may need to change it because it says Jeffrey.
Yeah, we can. We have the letter. It says Jeffrey, but Mr. Walters is in here today. So do we need it signed today? I think we do. We'll work on amending it for your signature. Yep.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Did we have any public comment?
Not to our knowledge, we didn't have anyone on the line for that.
Okay,
item.
good. All right. So next on the agenda is the redistricting map submittal process. Mr. Burke.
If someone could put the virtual environment back on the screen.
Thank you. So I asked Mr. Burke to be here today because he was working with the Board of Elections and the redistricting committee for the redistricting map process. This comes on the heels of the 2020 census, and I thought it would be good just for you all to have a quick update about what was done, what the maps ended up being submitted, and where things stand now. And then the next agenda item will follow up with a quick review because we do have some 2020 census numbers that we wanted to just share with you this morning.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. It's nice to see you all again. Chris, can we have just the current map up on the screen, please? I was assigned to assist the Carroll County Redistricting Commission in reviewing and crafting a new redistricting map. As Linda said, after each decennial or 10-year census, state law requires the county commissioners to appoint a redistricting commission consisting of 3 members recommended by the Democrat Central Committee, 3 members of the Republican Central Committee, and 1 member, recommended by the Republican Central Committee, and 1 member requested or suggested by the Board of Elections. So the commission was appointed in spring of 2021. The mission of the committee was to take a look at the current map and apply the new census data and make sure that the current map meets the state law, which requires you to have a relatively equal population in each district. As you can see, the current map, which was the focus of much discussion, was District 2. District 2, after applying the census data, was underpopulated. So the map has to be amended somehow, but because District 2 was underpopulated and you didn't have the equality in districts that's required under the state law. Some other considerations that the commission took into account, this is the redistricting commission, you want to have compact districts. Somebody should tell the state legislature that. You want to keep your towns preserved. In other words, you don't want splits between the towns. And you want to preserve what are called communities of interest. Those are geographical areas such that there are certain political interests of the community that gel together. They're not necessarily within town boundaries or city boundaries, but they're just communities where there's a common political interest that you want to keep them together as much as possible. And there was one other factor considered, and that was the request of the Board of Elections. They asked that we keep the precincts as intact as possible, and their thinking was, if you start splitting up the precincts, you're going to create voter confusion. You know, the voter's going to go to one area where they went to vote the last time and find out that the precinct has been split. They can put it in another district. So our board or commission tried to take that into account, tried to minimize the splitting of districts to save voter confusion and in the end expense. So they had an organizational meeting in September of 2021, and I want to tell you that the whole process was really compacted this time because normally the decennial census is released in the spring, or at least
spring, yeah.
early spring usually. So the commission
April.
usually will convene in May and get to the redistricting committee will convene in May, start the process, and have a bunch of meetings. Well, as you know, or you're going to find out, that the census was not released until September. So even though the commission was appointed in the spring, there was not much they could do absent the actual census data, which did arrive, thankfully, in mid-September, I think. So mid-September, things got rolling. They had 6 actual meetings of the commission. 4 of them were held at various locations throughout the county. We had one at the South Carroll Senior Center, one at the Tonytown Senior Center, and I managed to set off the fire alarm there. We had one at the North Carroll Library and one at the Mount Airy Senior Center. And the additional 2 meetings were held here in the county office building in room 003. The public attendance was lukewarm at best. We had a total of 11 members of the public attend any of these meetings, all these meetings together, and 2 of them were representatives from the Board of Elections that were there to keep an eye on the precinct splitting. So the consensus of the committee early on was, hey, we need to keep a northwest block. And let's take a look at the other maps, if you would, Chris. And you can, we'll slowly scroll through them, but the committee was convinced early on they wanted to create a northwest block consisting of New Windsor, Union Bridge, and Tawnytown. They wanted to keep them together. They considered them to be a community of interest. In addition, they wanted to join Hampstead and Manchester together. They did not feel that splitting them up, as was done earlier, was a good idea, and they felt that the community of Hampstead and Manchester was a community of interest that should be preserved. So what they came up with are a total of 5 maps, and we'll just scroll through them real quickly. Can you see them? Again, all of them created the Northwest Block. All of them created joined Hampstead and Manchester together. In the end, the committee rejected all the maps except for A and D. And A was finally selected by the redistricting commission as the one. There was a lot of polite discussion between the board members at the end between A and D. District 5 under map D would have included Century High School. Map A does not. And the thinking of Those who supported map A was that Century High School includes a lot of students from Mount Airy, so they didn't feel that that constituted a community of interest. Of course, those supporting map D said, it's in there already, we should keep it in there. In the end, the recommendation was map A. So what happens next? The map A was sent to the delegation, and the delegation is free to consider it only as a recommendation. They can accept it, they can reject it, they can rewrite it, and rewrite their own map. And as a matter of fact, we do have one final submission, and that was crafted by Delegate Krebs and Senator Reedy. Can you pull that one up, Chris? They looked at the maps and created their own for consideration, possibly by the delegation. And they're going to discuss that and some other items here tomorrow night in room 003 at a meeting. That's going to be one of the discussion items as to whether the delegation should take the commission's recommendation or something else along these lines. So all this information is up on the county's website. If any of you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I also have hard copies. If any of you are suffering from insomnia, these are hard copies of the commission's report. It's much easier to see the maps and much easier to see the lines. So that's where we stand with the redistricting commission. They did a lot of work in a very short time, and they are to be commended for it. So there's really nothing for the planning commission to do.
Nope.
It's just an informational session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim, I appreciate you coming.
And I'll leave these here.
I would like a copy.
Yes,
Yeah.
I
Thank you,
would-
Tim.
I would-
Appreciate
Yeah, we'll
that.
pass them out at the end of the
Thank
meeting.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks for your attention.
Yes, sir.
Okay, do we have any public comment?
They'll come at the end. We have one more quick little
Oh.
presentation, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to show you all the census numbers. So as Tim said, the census comes first. So we did the 2020 census. A lot of the census information was given out later than normal because of the pandemic. So we had a lengthier time for the census. So the census is a point in time count wherever you are residing as of April 1st of 2020. That is how we do the count. It's supposed to be that point in time. Given the pandemic, and typically the count goes through the end of June of that year. Given the pandemic, that stretched out, and there was a lot of fits and starts with going to December, then to September, then to October, and then eventually it became really October was the final deadline to get your count. Carroll County did extremely well for the self-response rate, meaning Carroll County residents responded without door knockers coming to get the most complete count possible. We were #1 in the state of Maryland for our self-response rate, and I believe number 20 out of 3,200 counties in the nation for our self-response rate. So it was a really great effort by our census committee. So Carroll's numbers are good, so we know that it's all self-response, and we didn't have to have a lot of door knocking and things like that coming back like some other areas of the state and the nation. And that's important in getting us the most accurate count possible. Again, the census is supposed to be a complete count. So if you don't respond, people come to you to get a response so we know who is living. And it's really important for this body to understand the census numbers, because the census is the basis, that demographic information, for how we know where we are as a county and where we can estimate we'll be going in the future. So I'm just going to really just give you a high-level presentation of the census information. And this actually was compiled and presented by the Baltimore Metropolitan Council, their Carroll numbers. So how the census data is disseminated is it comes from the federal government to the Maryland State Data Center, and then the State Data Center under Maryland law has to account for, and I'm probably going to get this incorrect, so forgive me, incarcerated persons. So they have to go back and reapportion the incarcerated persons to where they would reside after incarceration to get the correct number, I believe is how it goes, because or else then you have pockets of high numbers in areas. For instance, we have a major prison in Allegheny County, and that skews really what the population is then in Allegheny because of how they're counted. Group quarters are counted in the census, and there's various mechanisms to do that. We worked with group quarters here because of McDaniel College and some other facilities that house multiple unrelated persons. So it was a huge effort by everyone to make sure that we got this complete count. So again, here's just a little bit of information that the census data was made available August 12th, but that was the legacy data and did not include that incarcerated persons reapportionment. And then September 16th is when the state received the more easier to use census data and that summary file. And that's what Tim's group used as well for the redistricting committee. So again, this came from the jurisdictional level summaries from BRTB's Transportation Board. We use this information too for any long-range transportation planning, and that was the reason for the presentation that was given to us that day. So I'm just going to go ahead and just show you some of the numbers. They did a really nice job capturing all the information. So the data that was released in August was population by race and group quarters population, as well as housing units, which are occupied and vacant households. So you can see the change in population in all of Maryland's jurisdictions. The darker the blue color, the more population change occurred during that 10-year time span. The lighter the color was actually loss in population. So you can see Western Maryland lost population, as well as certain counties on the Eastern Shore and Baltimore City. And I believe Baltimore City was the only city in the nation that actually lost population in the last 10 years. I believe all other cities gained in population. Major metropolitan areas gained population. So Carroll County, we did grow, not as much as some of the other jurisdictions, but we grew by 5,700 new residents in Carroll County, which equates to a 3.4% change, where other jurisdictions, so Frederick to our west had a 16% increase. Baltimore and Harford County were around 6%. Howard was 15.8%. So again, you know, the larger counties in that 95 corridor and around the beltways tended to have more population growth percentage than the other jurisdictions. Baltimore City lost 5.7% of its population. It has been steadily declining for many decades now. So here's the population change from 1970 to 2020. The yellow highlighted is Carroll County. So in 1970, we had about 70,000 people living in Carroll County, and then each decade, as you can see, it increased. Some significant decades were 80 to 90 and 90 to 2000, but 2000 to 2010 and 10 to 20, we've had much more flattened growth rate. So the percent increase overall, as I said, was 3.4%, or 5,700 new Carroll Countyans. So the average household size, again, you know, trends that we pretty much know, and we use a lot of these trends, and we used this 2.74 number for our last planning efforts for the master plan and the freedom plan. So back in 70, the average household size was 3.26 persons per household, and it's been steadily declining not only in Carroll, but in the rest of the state of Maryland and the nation as well. So the most recent census was 2.74. We've readjusted our numbers to now be around that 2.68 mark for household size. And as you can see, we're still above the Baltimore region's average for total persons per household's average. But everyone's pretty close to, you know, that 2+, 2.5 mark. So it's really just, you know, tenths of a point difference. So again, total population, this is the entire Baltimore region, as you can see, going from 1980 to 2020. So in the entire Baltimore region, we have about 2.7 million, which grew by 134,000 over this last 10-year period. As you can see, this is the population by race and origin, and the Baltimore region is increasingly becoming diverse, just like the rest of the nation, where 53% make up white families, as well as 28% now African American. And then the next biggest demographic is with the Asian population, which grew from 4.5 to 6.3%. In the region, as well as the Hispanic population as well. So now, really quickly, because the census is a point in time, we also need to know what's going to happen in the future. So we do these forecasts, and Carroll County Planning Department does the forecasts for Carroll County, and we provide that on our website. And we also use those forecasted numbers. Our liquor board uses them to determine if there are new licensing requests that are coming about, and if they meet the population threshold to put out a new liquor license for a particular area, as well as we use it for planning applications and things like that. So we are always updating our forecasting and our projections for the future. We use use and occupancy permit data that we get monthly to estimate with some other multipliers how many new persons are coming in to the county. And then the census data kind of gives us that reset point every 10 years. So this is just the different rounds, so that means when we've updated it based on different things. So each jurisdiction provides their own projections, and rounds typically are based on what major policy implication has happened within your community, within your county, what other changes have occurred that would change either population growing or population declining. So round 9A, which was the most recent round done in early 2020, and before that in 2019, as you can see, we've pretty much were dead on to the census. We anticipated, and we being the region, anticipated a slight increase with round A, but as you can see, the round 9 in 2018 for the region was closest to the census. But you can see how we've been up and down, up and down, up and down, just various policies, the Great Recession, just not knowing how things were going to rebound after that. So again, it's a crystal ball that we try to have some clarity, but it's a crystal ball nonetheless. So then really quickly with Carroll County, you can see our growth from 1980 to 2020. And again, this last 10 year was probably the slowest growth rate Carroll County has seen. It was a reduction by 2/3 from what it was in 2010. So again, just really a much slower pace of percentage increase in population. And again, just mirroring the rest of the state and the nation, Carroll County is diversifying in its population. And then again, total population, so we were off in our estimates by 2.2%. We had anticipated less growth than we actually received. So in round 9A, we were estimating at the 2020 census, which is the check, that we'd have 169,000 persons in Carroll County, and we ended up having 172,000 with the census. So we were off by 3,600. Pretty much everyone in the region was plus or minus. Again, it's not a perfect science. We did the best with the information we have available in front of us. And so Carroll, as you can see, we've had some real crazy numbers with the various censuses where we were down, then we thought we were going to be really up. In the last several years, really since 2013, we've been honing in and have gotten better. Actually, the closer we've gotten to the 2020 census. Back prior to the 2010 census, there was an anticipation that Carroll County was going to be well over 200,000 persons, but with various policy changes, the Great Recession, and other demographic reasons, the population has not achieved, and we don't anticipate going over 200,000 for quite some time in the future. So again, we were anticipating not even being over 172,000 with this last census, but that's where we ended up. So we've been kind of hovering, a little bit above and a little bit below, and now this is the reset. So this information was compiled by Sean Kimberly. We have this information available, and this will be the basis of how then we move forward with our next planning processes for the county. And that is all. Are there any questions? Okay. well, thank you all. Thank you for your patience. I just wanted I thought it was important for you all to understand what the new information was.
Yes, we appreciate that. Thank you. Do we have anybody open for public comment?
Control room, do we have any additional callers online? I haven't seen anyone sign up for general public comment. I'm checking now, but I don't see.
We have a caller that's called in.
Okay.
Caller, identify yourself.
This is Dave Lewis. I'm a bailiff over at Circuit Court, but I was calling in about the Gillis Falls Trail.
Thank you. So that, do you still want to take comment? That item has already been heard and decided with public comment, but I'll leave it up to the chairperson if she would like to hear additional comment.
Yes, I think.
Okay.
Oh, okay, very good. My name's Dave Lewis, and my property includes a section of Gillis Falls Creek downstream from your proposed trail. I was a police officer with the Maryland Park Police from 1976 to 2003. My last 10 years was as a canine handler. The Maryland Park Police is a bi-county agency serving Montgomery and Prince George's counties. I have 27 years of experience working with hiker-biker trails down there. PG has 165 miles of pass. Montgomery County has over 250 miles of pass. I also worked for 10 years with the Linear Trail as a town of Sykesville police officer. Some of our paths had low crime rates, typically the ones that paralleled parkways like Beach Drive, which most people know as Rock Creek Parkway, Sligo Creek Parkway, and Little Falls Parkway. And that's primarily because they're in view of passing patrol cars. We had a lot of problems with trails that went through wooded areas like your proposed Gillis Falls Trail. We experienced indecent exposures, sex assaults, rapes, murders, robberies, marijuana grows, homeless camps, and underage parties, to name a few. I also handled hundreds of thefts from auto at the parking lots. They know the car will be unattended for a long period of time with the owner out of sight. No matter what you do, people will leave purses and other valuables in their cars. To the equestrians that are involved in this, any improvements like paving, to me anyway, would degrade the trail riding experience you have now. Be prepared for a dramatic increase in dirt bike and ATV activity. And lastly, I want to point out that that whole area is a public hunting area, catering to a lot of inexperienced hunters from the city. Mixing that with joggers and bicyclists could be a recipe for disaster.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you. Are there any other callers, or is that in control room?
That's all the callers we have.
All right, thank you.
Linda, I have a question going back to the census data. Is there when those of you who are professionals at this get together and y'all decide, you know, there's a certain growth rate that is a healthy community growth rate. You know, it's what should we be trying to achieve to have healthy growth? What do you think that number is? I'm just curious. It's not a quiz. I just kind of want to know, do you think that number is a good number? Should we be a little higher? Should we be a little lower? What do you think it is?
I mean, it really just depends on what the community wants the community to be, what the elected officials, what the people, you know, do we want a county? I mean, it's very subjective. You know, some people may think less growth is a healthy community. Some people may think a lot more growth is a healthy community. I mean, I will say it's harder to plan for a community that's losing population than gaining population, because you've built your community for a certain number and then now you've gone below that number. Carroll is not that. We have a positive growth trajectory still, and I think it, you know, I mean, there's no magic number or bullet. It just really depends on what the vision is for Carroll.
I was just curious if you know the commission had an idea on, because again, there's, you know, we can outpace our budget, which we don't want to do. That's one of my big concerns. But then again, you know, growth in general, I think, is a good thing. But again, you know, too much of anything is a bad thing. So I was just curious what your thoughts were on that, because, you know, when you look at Frederick, those numbers are, you know, that's staggering. I mean, you know, when you get up in the teens, that's a number. I wouldn't want to be there at all. But I was just curious what we were thinking as a county. What the aspiration is. Do we have an idea of what that is, and what do we as a planning and zoning commission need to be doing to foster that, to help hit that number. I don't know what the answer is, and, you know, somebody brighter than me needs to do it, but I just thought I'd ask what you thought.
It's excellent thoughts, Pete, and I don't know what the answer is either. We've never really married our delicate balance of growth here to a number. You know, I agree with you. For those of us that are back and forth to Frederick a good bit, there's no question that they've exceeded infrastructure versus their growth. I mean, if you've traveled up there, Matt, I know you've been up there, you go up there, you know, you're close there. You know, the roads up there are crazy, overcrowded.
I look at the best way to avoid going.
Yeah.
So there's that, yeah.
But aren't they the largest county mass? I think when we took that course.
In terms of land area?
Yes. Yeah, I think they are. So I
Right.
think one would expect they would have more growth.
Yeah, you could look at that. I mean, there's so many aspects up there. I don't know how, Matt, I don't know if you've been between Tawnytown and Walkersville, but the amount of farms up there that have gone out. In other words, perhaps they're leasing up there, Matt. You know better than me probably, but you know, there's some dilapidated farms up there that just aren't doing anything anymore.
Yeah, but it's still not in the major corridor. I mean, really, 194, you know, Bauman's owned a store up there on 194, and they
Right.
closed it because there was it was commuter traffic, it wasn't people driving to and from somewhere.
Right.
And I know Durkett told me that years ago. It just, when they bought that, they said, wow, all these people coming through here, but it's all business traffic, it's not really, you know, so, yeah, now you get on 26.
Well, yeah.
And you get to Liberty Town, and I make a left and go out to 70, because I would just rather avoid going in towards Searsville, because it's a mess.
Yeah, I think it's worth, you know, not a Manhattan Project type conversation, but I think it's worth having a target that we manage to, and if we exceed it, then we did too much, and then, you know, if you're under it, well, you know, that's not healthy for the citizens either. So I think it's good to give that some thought as to, you know, because growth, I'd like to see our county grow. Again, I don't want to outpace anything, so I think it's worth, you know, thinking through. You know, I don't know. You know, the Federal Reserve's trying to hit a certain inflation rate. You know, too much of that is a good thing. Deflation, no one wants that. You don't want hyper, don't want deflation. Again, growth-wise, is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 4? Is it 8? I don't know. I mean, 8 sounds high to me, but you know, again, when you know, I'm the guy that's always out of step up here, and I need to shut up again.
Well, that's okay.
But when you see the other counties growing at those rates, you kind of have to wonder, okay, well, you know, is this good or bad? And I happen to think, you know, we've got a beautiful county, and we're doing a lot of things right. But I think it's worth asking the question. I'm done.
I think it's a valid point. I agree.
I do too. From a real estate point, I mean, we've definitely been growing more than we had in the past, so I don't know the answer. I mean, certainly some of it is the growth areas that we look at, and they are designed for future growth. But then, of course, it's a balance with the community, what they are saying they do or don't want.
That's right.
So it's a question for another day. So if, I do notice that on here, it says the next meeting is Wednesday, November 3rd. So maybe I have it on one from me.
Is it the 3rd or the 1st?
It's
December
the 1st.
Okay.
Not November.
Right, so this, yes.
So the agenda has been revised. It should say that on the agenda.
Well, it probably does. I happen to have the old one in my hand.
Yeah, it does. December the 1st at 6 p.m.
Right.
And that's a virtual meeting.
Right.
December 1st.
December 1st, 6 p.m. Virtual. All right. And would you all like to stay here or make a motion?
I would make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Okay.